All right, Joel Klatt is with us now. Fox, they've got the Big Ten championship game, Michigan and Iowa. That is coming up on Fox over the weekend. He joins us each week, courtesy of MyBookie.ag. Code NEXTROUND when you sign on at MyBookie.ag. What is up, Klatt? How are you today?
I'm good. I got through the game, and about 5 hours after the game, my immune system just gave out. It was like enough. So pretty under the weather yesterday and today. So forgive me for the cough drop and the voice.
Wait. Is this you setting the table for not making a trip to call Michigan's drilling of Iowa this weekend? You're going to be at the game, though, right?
Oh, no. I'll be there.
Okay.
I'll be there. In fact, it's perfect timing in that regard. It's like you get sick right after the game. I've got a whole week to get back. I'll be fine. It should be great.
It's like a well-planned pregnancy. That's perfect.
Yeah, that's right.
Much like that, yes. So let's go back to your game Saturday before we look at everything else. Ohio State and Michigan went. There was the unknown about not having Harbaugh there. I don't guess it ever really reared its head. I mean, I didn't see a time where Sharon Moore was kind of feet to the fire, having to make a critical decision in that game that I remember.
Well, he made a few, and like let's give credit where it's due. Obviously, Sharon has handled this incredible.
Yes.
Think about his stock now. The fact that his name should be up for every opening that is currently opening. Period. Sharon Moore is one of the bright, best young coaches I've ever been around. He has handled this incredibly well. Think about the adjustment in game that he made against Penn State as the acting head coach, getting him through the Maryland game, a couple of critical decisions in that game when you knew it was going to be a sandwich game where they were going to be looking ahead. It was an emotional win the previous week. They have just the human distraction of a coach being fired. He navigates through that game. Then to coach in this game, the enormity of it, legacy's on the line. And he coached like a guy with no scar tissue in this game. Let's face it. So he goes for it 3 times on 4th down. Now, to be fair, if you're Michigan, you've got Blake Corum, you're going to go for it on those 4th downs. I think it would have been more surprising if they didn't go for it. It was 4th and goal inside the 1. And then twice on successive series of downs, they went for 4th and 1, and then for 4th and 1 en route to a touchdown. What I find more interesting to talk about, rather than just the decisions to go or not go, which is where we generally sit as a fan base or as we evaluate it, guys, we talk about it. And I've talked to Dan Lanning about this at length. It's just part of the decision to go for it. The real brilliance is, what's your plan and what do you execute in those situations, right? Lanning and I and Will Stein had a conversation before the Utah game, and we talked all about the end of the Washington game, both the end of the half and the end of the Washington game. Will Stein, the offensive coordinator for Oregon, said the failure was on him, not on Dan's decision to go. It was on him because he called the wrong play and they didn't execute it either time. And we've talked about this a little bit. Remember, if you think back all the way, I said, why sprint out? You're cutting off half the field. Your whole expertise is the veteran quarterback. Let him use the whole field. Okay, so now let's spin forward. It's 4th and 1. I think it's the plus side of the 50. I think they're on like the 42-yard line, maybe the 39-yard line, somewhere around there. They go for it on 4th down. Okay, they get into this double tight set with the little tight ends in kind of an off-the-ball wing position. Colston Loveland is on the right side. Blake Corum is on the right side. So the back is offset, side saddle, to Colston Loveland's side on the 1st, 3rd down. They all look over. And then it's like, change the play. Well, because that was the wide side of the field, the corner to that side, Denzel Burke, and the safety to that side, Sonny Styles, had some width on the formation. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so they thought to themselves, we better check this. So they move Blake over to the short side of the field. They run the dive, and they get it. They're really good at that, obviously. Okay, so now 3 plays later, they're in the same situation. It's 4th and 1 again. 1st, 2nd, 3rd down, 4th and 1. Here we go. What do? Well, now it's on the right hash. They get into the exact same set. Back offset to Colston Loveland, who's in that offset little wingback position. They look over to the sideline. Now, because it's the right hash and not the wide side of the field, the defense is condensed and it's tight to that side of the formation. These are things that I wish I could get into to the game, but it just takes too long. And they see that and they stick with it, which is the play action Colston Loveland into the flat. Okay, so he had a plan for those fourth downs. Those were double play calls. We're going to look over which one do we want to run based on leverage of the defense. So his plan in those fourth downs, I was more impressed with than even the decisions to go for it in the first place. Again, Sharon Moore should be up and a candidate for every job in the country. And if Jim flirts or even goes to the NFL, that's your next head coach at the University of Michigan, hands down.
Yeah, and in this game with everything on the line, he puts in a freshman quarterback who has a successful long run. He throws a halfback pass. Meanwhile, on the other sidelines, Ryan Day, all of a sudden in this game, it seems like he's coaching with one hand tied behind his back. He doesn't seem to be the aggressor anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I equated it to scar tissue a little bit earlier. You know, Sharon Moore has zero scar tissue from this game. He's never sat in a press conference as the head coach and had to deal with a loss in this game. In fact, he's never even had to deal with it as a coordinator. You know, so Ryan Day has that scar tissue. And I would just say this, like, Ryan, you guys know, Ryan's a great coach, obviously. Right. 89 win percentage. Guy's a freaking great coach. He got put into situations that were less obvious than what Sharon's situations were. So his situations, second drive of the game, it's 4th and 1, but it's at their own 45. So now it's the minus side of the 50. It's the second possession of the game. It's the two best scoring defenses in America. Can't go for that. Can't go for that because you might not even, if that's a turnover, and Saban has talked about this, this is not about analytics. I get it. Like, the percentages might be with you to get the first down, but there is a chance you don't, which is basically a turnover. And I don't know if Michigan even needs a first down to be in scoring territory. So not only is it a turnover, it's probably points the other direction. That is a big risk in the second series of the game. So it's not as cut and dry as the decisions that Michigan had. I don't know how much trust he has in his quarterback. He's kind of played around his quarterback for a large part of the season. And at the end of the half, that's the other point that people are talking about. It's 4th and 2. It's the Michigan 34. It's going to be a 52-yard field goal, which is a career long for their kicker. And he settles for the field goal, settles for a career long. It's a tough decision. And what he had to figure out is in what way am I increasing my yards for or odds for a kick by going for this? Let's say I risk it, okay? And I go for it and get it. Great. But I had to risk the 4th down and leave them some time where one completion might put them in field goal range. And what advantage am I gaining by that? Is it 4% make percentage? You know, it's kind of like the difference between a guy firing it, 30 feet from the stick versus 26 feet from the stick in golf. It's like, it's still a low percentage putt. So he had to make a decision of like, well, how many cracks at this am I going to get? Am I going to get the first down and take a couple shots? In hindsight, I think he should have gone for it, had a timeout in his back pocket, take a couple shots with Marvin Harrison Jr. You've got Marvin Harrison Jr., so take a couple shots with him. And again, I don't know how much. I don't want to, I think that there was some management around Kyle McCord after the early interception. But certainly not as clear or plain as day decisions as what Michigan had. But yeah, you can certainly look at those and say that he may have coached a little tight, may have coached for a defensive-oriented game rather than an offensive-oriented game. And then here's another one, just like a game within the game. And again, this is where I wish I had so much more time during the broadcast. So once Ryan decides he's going to kick it, he does the smart thing by putting the pressure on Sharon Moore by not taking his timeout yet. So now he's going to take it under 4 seconds so that the kick ends the half. So then Sharon has to make a decision. Do I want a little bit of time to have a kickoff and a couple shots at getting in field goal range with my offense? Or do I want to save my timeout to ice a kicker who's about to try a career long? Because you can't take both. Right. You can't take the back-to-back timeouts. Well, Sharon then decides, no, I'm going to take my timeout as an ice timeout pays off beautifully. And, the first kick is made, second kick is missed, and Ohio State doesn't get points. And that's basically the difference in the game. When you look at it, coming down the stretch, the interception led to a touchdown, the missed kick, and there you go.
On the other side of the situation, the quarterback controversy or conversation coming into this game was after Penn State and Maryland, J.J. McCarthy. Is he hurt? Did they not, have confidence in him? That 22-yard touchdown throw to Roman Wilson was one of the best throws, if not the best throw that I saw all weekend. That was an NFL throw in the tightest of windows. He was only asked to throw the ball 20 times. He completes 16 of them. I just wish we got to see more J.J. McCarthy.
Well, this is why I do think that this team is better suited for a postseason run than they have been either of the last 2 years, because I do think they're more balanced. Like they can throw it. They can run it when they want to. They can throw it when they want to. The throw to Roman Wilson was spectacular, right in between Malik Hartford, the freshman safety, and Denzel Burke, the corner, on that over route. And what's fascinating is I've gone back and watched the film. Malik Hartford is in a whole safety kind of squat position. He's like a jump safety, and his eyes are in the backfield the entire time. And then right before McCarthy throws it, he kind of turns to look up the crossing route, and that's when his head kind of turns. And right when his head turns, I don't know if JJ saw his head turn or he got fortunate because of the head turn, one of the two. But if he doesn't turn his head, JJ throws it right to him. But because he turns his head, he doesn't see the ball, and it whizzes right past his head, and it winds up for a touchdown. It was an incredible play, a great throw. They've got a really good flex tight end in Colston Loveland that they were able to get loose a couple of times. And then they did what Michigan does late in the game, and they kind of squeezed the boa constrictor analogy that I've talked about. I moved Michigan back up to number 1 in the country because that was a rugged game, and that's, I think, the best win, maybe other than Texas, in the country so far this season. And they've been the most consistent and most dominant team in the country. Now, you can make an argument that Georgia has a higher ceiling, and I would agree with that. When Georgia wants to be great, they're great, and no one can beat them if they play their best. But they don't play there all the time. Last weekend was again evidence of that against Georgia Tech. Whereas while Michigan's ceiling might be lower, they're at or near it more often than Georgia is at or near their ceiling.
All right, he is Joel Klatt. Is brought to you each week by MyBookie.ag. Code Next Round when you sign on. 50% deposit match up to $1,000 with code Next Round when you sign on at MyBookie.ag. I know you have to travel a lot on Saturday, so you might not get to see the 2:30 games. I'm curious if you were watching 4th and 31 live, if you saw it when you landed, your reaction to Alabama's Iron Bowl win.
What about that defensive call at the end?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so thoughts on both.
All right.
Okay, one, I was not watching live, so I had to watch it back. And when I saw it on Gamecast on the flight, I'm like, oh, I'm like, what in the world? First of all, it goes from 1st and goal from the 7 with over a minute left. And I'm like, oh yeah, Bam, it's like, oh yeah, for sure. Well, Bama's going to win, nice drive, got down there. Well done. And then watching on Gamecast, it going from, what was it, like 2nd and 8, they lose a yard maybe on 1st down, I believe. And then all of a sudden it's like taking a while. And I'm like, oh, okay, they scored. You know how Gamecast, it kind of takes a while if something happens. And then all of a sudden it's like 3rd and 28. I was like, what happened? What is going on? And people on the plane are looking at me. I'm freaking out. Then all of a sudden it's 4th and 31. I'm like, what did they across the line? So then they complete it. I'm like, this is crazy. So immediately when we land, I go back and I watch it. And okay, here are my thoughts. They got incredibly fortunate. I mean, that's basically a Hail Mary throw, right? It's not like he was open. There was no structure to the route concept. It's like, okay, my guy is going to be better than yours. Here we go. My kids play a game called 3 Flags Up. It used to be the old 500 when we were kids, where you just throw it up and you yell a number and you say like, 200, and you throw it up. Now it's 3 flags up. You just keep throwing until someone gets 3 flags, and then they get to be the quarterback. That was a 3 flags up throw. It really was. And you got to credit I mean, what an incredible adjustment to kind of like find space. So you wiggle, you create the space, and then jump back. That was tremendous. The throw to be catchable and yet not short. Great throw from Milroe. That's going to get overlooked, obviously, but that was a tremendous throw because that's a small window where it's uncatchable or short, and the game is over either way. You got to throw it perfectly, and he did. And then we get to the defensive call, which was horrific.
Oh, yeah.
What are we doing? How do guys make millions of dollars and call a defense like that? They rush two with a spy?
I know.
A spy for what? All right, guys. The only guy that had a one-on-one pass rushing situation was like this.
Yeah.
Just like backing up. And I'm thinking to myself, the one thing that you don't want, you can say like, we want to keep him in the pocket. See, I disagree. I totally disagree. When you're in a situation like that, you want the quarterback rolling to his offhand because it cuts off half the field. You're going to effectively decrease the amount of field you have to cover if you force the quarterback out to his offhand. So if you're going to rush three, that's fine. But the third rusher has to overload towards his throwing hand in order to flush him out. They flushed him out on third down, and you see the result of that. Like, you want him out of the pocket. You want to decrease the effective area that you have to cover as a team. That was a horrendous defensive call. Horrendous. They should have learned their lesson on third down because he had forever to throw. They didn't. Called the same, if not wackier defense on fourth down with a spy. Why are you spying? Well, you're going to worried that he's going to run it in from 31 yards out when you've got over half your defense standing at the goal line? What? These guys make millions of dollars to do this. What? How is?
I personally think the spy was there to try to lure an Alabama offensive lineman into an ineligible receiver downfield.
Well, it didn't work.
It did not work.
It did not.
I have never believed that you've got like this SEC bias that a lot of people believe. Look, 2 years ago, we saw a similar situation. Nobody believed Bama could beat Georgia. They were a 6-point underdog. They're 5.5-point underdogs here. But if I'm on that committee and Alabama wins a one-possession game, both Alabama and Georgia are in this college football playoff.
I think it depends. There's going to be a lot of teams vying for it. I'll put it this way. I think that you can have a really great debate between Bama and Oregon, Bama and even an undefeated FSU. I do not think that Bama wins or should win a debate against Texas, right? And I think that that's reasonable. Wouldn't you agree?
I do agree with that.
Yes.
I mean, look, head-to-head's got to mean something. They beat them by double digits in Tuscaloosa. I know they're playing differently right now, but I would have Texas in front of Alabama, but it would be Michigan, Texas, Alabama, Georgia. Unless Washington wins.
Yeah, and we'll see. Again, I think Bama, needs something to play out. The one that and I hate that I have this feeling, but it's true. I've been a guy that has advocated for most deserving. And that being said, Florida State is not even close to the rest of the top teams in the country right now without Jordan Travis. They're not a top 4 team. So even if they win, I think Georgia would be better even if they lost. Alabama is better. Texas is better if they win. Oregon's better if they win. Washington's better even if they lose. And so that's the one that I'm most interested to see how the committee ranks them, in particular this Tuesday, although as we know, going all the way back through the years, wacky things can happen from this ranking toward and then what we actually get in the final rankings. I think that there's a chance that you could get 2 SEC teams in, and I wouldn't be opposed to that. Georgia is clearly a team that at their top end is the best in the country. If they lose, do you really want to keep Georgia at home after a 29-game win streak and 2 straight national championships because they lose to Alabama in a conference championship game and in a neutral site, even though it's close to their? No, I don't want to keep Georgia out in that regard. I think the one that's fair to debate is like if it comes down to Alabama or Texas, that's where I would just make the argument that the game earlier in the season has to mean something. And you've got to honor that Texas beat that specific team in their house by double digits.
All right, he is Joel Klatt. You will see him on the call of that Michigan-Iowa Big Ten Championship game on Fox from Indianapolis. Thank you very much for the time, Klatt. Get to feeling better, man. Can't wait to see you Saturday.
I appreciate you guys. Have a great week, okay?
All right, buddy, you too. Take care. Klatt with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. He's presented each week by MyBookie.ag. Code next round for that 50% deposit match up to $1,000 when you use code next round. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.ag.